Elizabeth Warren has a plan for Medicare for all that will destroy the economy. I'm here to tell you why it's brilliant. Twitter is banning political ads, which will end up being the most political thing ever. And finally, a story that will warm your heart. I don't have a heart, but you do, and it will warm yours. All that is coming up right now on I'm Right. Have you ever known a guy who tells big lies? Big lies. I have. I've known 2 or 3 of these people in my life, and I'm not talking about the little white lies. I'm talking big ones. You see, there are people out there, he might tell you, hey, I ran into Salma Hayek in an elevator one time. She stopped me, told me how handsome I was. What would you say to that guy? Dude, shut up. That never happened. You never met Salma Hayek, and if you did, she never said that. You know, that's what would happen to that guy. What about big lie guy? And I've known a guy like this. Not only did I meet Salma Hayek, we dated for like 5 years. At the same time I was dating her, I was dating her sister and her mother. It was so awesome, dude. You don't take the time to rebut that guy. You don't take the time to go back at that guy. You stand there in horror. Like, how could anybody possibly believe what's coming out of your mouth? And then you move on. But who won there? Well, he won. He told the biggest lie. He didn't get embarrassed in public, and he moved on about his day. That Salma Hayek and her sister and her mother dating story, that is the Elizabeth Warren $52 trillion Medicare for all plan. Oh, she rolled it out this morning. You know, Elizabeth Warren's been telling everybody under the sun, I have a plan to pay for Medicare for all. Even her fellow socialists on the Democrat stage are like, you can't pay for that. How are you going to pay for that? There's no way you can pay for that. And Elizabeth Warren was telling everybody, don't worry, a plan is coming. A plan is coming. Well, whoo boy, a plan did come. Let's do the math here. Total cost, $52 trillion. New government spending, keep in mind we're already $22 trillion in debt, by the way. New government spending, $20 trillion. New taxes on businesses, $9 trillion. Higher taxes for the wealthy. And she claims no middle-class tax hikes. What? Nobody on earth believes these numbers. And even if you did believe these numbers, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I realize I went to community college, but the total cost is $52 trillion, but there's only $20 trillion in new government spending. So carry the one. There's still like $20 trillion unaccounted for. And of course, it's all a tax on the evil people, you know, the employers and the billionaires. And she even has, this is part of the plan, I'm not making this up. She has in the plan, we are going to reduce doctor compensation. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think that will do to the medical field? Do you think people are going to be lining up to spend 90 years in college only to graduate and make $50,000 a year? Probably not. Oh, by the way, comprehensive immigration reform is part of her Medicare for all plan. And the reason I say this is brilliant is this. She's the guy who dated Salma Hayek and her sister and her mother at the same time. It's so over the top. It's so stupid. It's so dramatic. It's so awful. It would completely not only destroy the American medical system, it would destroy the American economy. This essentially, in black and white, is a plan to wreck the United States of America and essentially sink the world economy because ours would crash too. It's such a disastrous Death Star plan, it'll be out of the news in a day. Why? It's too much to unpack. Have you ever been in one of those eating competitions or seen somebody do one? And he sits down and he's like, man, I can eat this 20-pound burger. You just wait. And then they sit it down in front of him and he's like, man, I guess I can't. I'll just pay for it. You guys can keep the t-shirt. That's what this is. There's not even a point in starting to take bites out of this. It's so disastrous. The lie is so big that she's going to get away with it. Mark my words. By Monday, not a single person out there will be talking about Elizabeth Warren's Medicare for All plan and how ridiculous her steps are to pay for it. Nobody. Well, maybe Elizabeth Warren will if she can't learn how to shut up after her big lie, because Elizabeth Warren was asked specifically, you realize that this is going to kill like 2 million jobs, 2 million jobs, and that's just what we know about? And this is what Elizabeth Warren had to say about that.
An economist at the University of Massachusetts Amherst told Kaiser Health News earlier this year that could result in about 2 million jobs lost. He said those would be mostly administrative positions in insurers, doctors' offices. And he said that politicians who want to move toward that system, Medicare for All, have to think about what a, quote, just transition, a fair transition would look like. What would that look like for you?
So I agree. I think this is part of the cost issue and should be part of a cost plan.
She didn't even have the sense to lie about it. Oh, yeah, 2 million jobs. Well, yeah, I agree. These politicians are so divorced from reality that they don't realize what having a job is. That's because their jobs are never at risk. People do realize that things transcend politics, right? For the last 8 years under Barack Obama, when things were struggling economically, there were people out there, they weren't putting food on the table. Christmas morning came and the kiddos ran out and there weren't any toys under the tree. That guy is back to work. That guy's family's eating every night. Birthday presents, Christmas presents. Life is better. That guy doesn't want to hear about politics. And he sure as heck doesn't want to hear some psychopathic politician from Massachusetts say, well, I mean, it's just 2 million jobs. Yeah, that's no problem. That's somebody's life. 2 million people, that's somebody's livelihood. That's how they pay their mortgage, their cell phone bill. That's how they pay for their car. That's how they eat. These people, what world do you live in? But that just shows you they really are all sociopaths, people. And that is why government, above all things, should be kept small. There's no such thing as good government. There is small government and there is bad government, because these people are all nutcases who don't give a crap about you. Trust me on that one. Trump is doing the best he can to toe the line on Medicare, I guess I should say. Medicare, keep in mind, is going to bankrupt the United States of America. He knows the Democrats are going to try to run against him on that, so he had this to say about protecting it.
So in my campaign for president, I made you a sacred pledge that I would strengthen, protect, and defend Medicare for all of our senior citizens. And you see it's under siege, but it's not going to happen. You see these people on the other side. These people are crazy, by the way. They're totally crazy. But they want to take it away and give you lousy health care. It's pretty incredible. You want to keep your doctors, right? Remember with Obama, President Obama, right? He said you can keep your doctor, you can keep your play. That didn't work out too well for the people.
I mean, look, he's got to say that. Every single politician has to say that. We're gonna protect Medicare and we're gonna strengthen Medicare. There's a time limit on that. Nobody wants to hear that, but there's this thing called math, and the math, it doesn't look good. Medicare and Social Security very shortly will take up the entire budget. Every penny we take in will eventually be gobbled up by Medicare and Social Security. That means you're borrowing money to pay for every bullet and man in the military. Every other thing you want government to do, you're borrowing money to do it. And we have 10,000 people retiring a day. This is not only a big problem, it's a problem that's not going away. It's a problem nobody wants to address. And the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump, by not really addressing it, is the better of the two options, because Elizabeth Warren just wants to make sure the collapse happens tomorrow instead of 20 or 30 years from now. What you gonna do? Nancy Pelosi, we all know that stalwart conservative Nancy Pelosi, how she feels about economics, but even she is not exactly on board with Medicare for all.
I'm not a big fan of Medicare for all. I mean, welcome the debate. I think that we should have health care for all. I think that the Affordable Care Benefit is better than the Medicare benefit, but we have invited advocates for it to testify in Congress, in the Ways and Means Committee, in the Budget Committee, in the Rules Committee, being respectful of the point of view. But it is expensive. Who pays is very important.
I love when they mince words like that, when they tiptoe along like that. Well, I'm not a big fan of Medicare for all, but I like health care for all. Wait, what? You're talking about the same thing. All right, enough of this healthcare stuff. I do want to address something before I finish my amazing monologue tonight on a Friday. You hear a lot about the deep state this and deep state that. And what people are talking about is a bureaucracy, not just IRS anymore, CIA, FBI, pick your government agency, packed full of Democrat activists, packed full of people who believe it is their job to keep the government in check. No, that's not their job. Their job is to serve underneath the legislative branch, the executive branch. You don't get to be in the State Department, the CIA, the FBI, and think to yourself, I have a higher calling. I have a higher calling than these politicians, so if I see something I don't like, it's my job to take them down. Wait, what? So when I hear things like this from the former director of CIA, it makes me a little bit nervous.
Agree that now
totally.
The impeachment inquiry is underway, sparked by a complaint from someone within the intelligence community. It feeds the president's concern and often used term about a deep state being there to take him out.
Thank God for the deep state. I mean, I think, everyone here has seen this progression of diplomats and intelligence officers and White House people trooping up to Capitol Hill right now and saying, these are people who are doing their duty, who are responding to a higher call.
And therein lies the problem. A higher call. That's how they feel, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what's scary. Is it good to have a higher calling in life? Of course it is. I always knew I was meant for greatness. That's why I'm doing this. That's fine. You want a higher calling. But when you view your partisan hackery as a higher call, that's dangerous. Always fear the true believer more than you fear anybody else. And that's why having so many leftist activists in the government is a dangerous situation. They don't feel like they're playing politics. They don't feel like they're doing anything wrong. They feel like I have a higher calling, and part of that higher calling is stopping Donald Trump. And they believe it all the way, which is part of the reason they're in so much trouble and some people are about to get indicted. Representative Matt Gaetz had a little something to say about the deep state as well.
This is not a crime by our president. It is a setup by the deep state. The same deep state that told us that President Trump was engaged in a criminal conspiracy. The same deep state that had an insurance policy against the people of this great country electing Donald Trump.
He's not wrong. Again, fear the true believers. And I'm not one that's going to sit here and tell you that there's this massive organized conspiracy. You know, they meet in these dark, smoky rooms with a cigar, and they come up with plans to take down the government. Most of these people are far too stupid to ever come up with anything like that. But they don't have to have these secret meetings when they're all working towards the same goal. The end of Donald Trump's presidency and bringing back Democrat rule. That's what they want. They do believe it's a higher calling, and it is a serious problem. And I'll say one more thing. Alexander Vindman, that lieutenant colonel who went up and gave that testimony about when he said, you remember he said, I didn't like the direction we're going in. I felt like this was a change in foreign policy. One, remember, it's not up to you, Alexander. And two, he meant that, people. He meant that all the way. He believed it. They believe it. And the best thing Donald Trump could do, if he wants to preserve the rest of his presidency and help stop this endless impeachment nonsense, endless witnesses to this and that, and people trying to torpedo his administration, he should line up every single person that is a holdover from the Barack Obama administration and hand them pink slips on the way out the door. Thanks for your service. Don't come back. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. Coming up next, former counterterrorism officer Drew Berquist joins us to talk about deep state and my genius plan, well, my genius theory about Elizabeth Warren. Hang on. Well, sometimes we like to bring in experts on this show when it comes to things like CIA and various other subjects. Our good friend, former counterintelligence officer or counterterrorism officer, or just basically super spy, like I like to call him, Drew Berquist, joins us now on the show. Drew, before we get to deep state stuff, I have a brilliant theory on Elizabeth Warren's $52 trillion healthcare plan. And I realize I didn't tell you we were talking about this, but you're going to have to think on your feet. You used to fight terrorists. I think that it's absolutely brilliant. It's so insane and stupid and beyond belief, and the math doesn't work. I mean, all of it's a disaster. It'll destroy the economy. But it's so insane, she won't get challenged much on it because there's too much burger there to eat. You can't wrap your mouth around the burger, so you're just going to give up and walk away.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I love it's the middle class, right? That's not going to get taxes raised on it, by the way, somehow,
yes.
Despite that price tag, which is remarkable. But I think you're right. Like, there's just no look. It's not. It's not something that we can even address. She can't address it. The opponents can't address it. So let's just move on.
No, I love it. I think she's got a great hustle going on. And also, I cannot wait to see Donald Trump savage her on the debate stage about it, but that's another matter. All right, deep state stuff. I have to be honest, Drew. I don't like to go full tinfoil on my head. I don't think there's a deep state in the sense that they all have these secret meetings somewhere in the basement of the CIA, and they go over all the plans to take down the president and put up their own puppet government. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that takes place. I do believe we have a bureaucracy that is absolutely packed full of Democrat activists. Much of that's due to Barack Obama. We have a bureaucracy packed full of Democrat activists, so they're all walking the same direction. They're just not necessarily coordinating it while they walk that direction. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think that look, there's no skull and crossbones meetings that are happening. There's no, I mean, I think that does happen somewhere, but it's an unrelated topic. We probably don't want to know what that looks like. But this is not some huge thing that, hey, every Monday I'll see at 6:30 pancake breakfast. It's not that regimented. It's people who have their own opinions that within the government apparatus should not exist, that go against the oath that they swore to uphold and protect the Constitution and this great country that we live in. And instead they go down different paths and figure out how to subvert the system, use the system to their advantage to make sure that they get the outcome that they want. So you've got people doing it in a myriad of different ways. So what ends up happening is they said not to cross the wires or whatever in Ghostbusters. Everyone's doing that though. There's a lot of crossing going on, and everyone stands to lose because they're all doing it in a system that is not supposed to be happening, and that goes against the very system of laws and rules and regulations that we have in the government and these different agencies that they're working at. So it ends up creating a huge mess, and the reason they hate President Trump is because he doesn't play by that system. He's not one of them. He does it a very different way, whether you like it or not, and they're all terrified.
Well, Drew, actually what they said in Ghostbusters was you're not supposed to cross the streams. You don't cross streams. Why would you be so hesitant to say cross streams on the air, Drew? Is there some other meaning there?
I don't know. Maybe I got in trouble in first grade. Not saying anything about it here, though.
All right. On to the true believer stuff. You do want somebody who serves in the government. I mean, look, you're an intelligence officer serving overseas. So you want Drew Berquist to feel like he's doing something greater than himself. You do want him to feel like he has a higher calling, a higher call. That's a good thing. But at some point in time, if that higher call becomes a call to take down a Republican, take down a Democrat, play politics with it, now that feeling of having a higher call is bad. And that's what we have now. We have a former director of the CIA on camera saying, well, thank God for the deep state, and I'm glad these guys feel like they have a higher call. So what do we do with that? How do we root that out, Drew? But these people, I really genuinely believe this. For the most part, these people do not believe in their hearts that they are doing something wrong. They believe they're serving the greater good and just doing what's best for the country. So how do you combat that?
Well, I mean, it's like we talked about last time. You punish them. I mean, because you're right. These people are all, ideologists. They believe that's what Democrats are, right? They don't live in reality. They live in this ideal world, but that's not what we actually all live and exist within. So they have these ideas. I think they do very much capture what you said there. Is they try to play off that this is bigger than self. This is for the country. But one of the questions you get asked when you're sworn in and working for all these places, when you get re-polygraphed, if you're at a place that is at the level of significance that you have, routine and recurring polygraphs, or do you have any plans or intentions to subvert or go against the U.S. government? And it's not like, unless it's a Republican, it's just the U.S. government. So you're supposed to uphold the Constitution, go and accomplish your mission, which, by the way, is never going against the U.S. president or a senator or a congressman. It doesn't matter what party they're from, by the way. It's to go and protect our citizens and enforce the laws. If you're FBI, it's go overseas and do what we did. If you're CIA or DIA, NSA, et cetera, that's your job. You're not supposed to wade into politics. You're not supposed to get involved in any of that. And they did and thought they could get away with it. And the only way you stop it is that you punish people, and there is a precedent set. I know that Jim Comey doesn't like the word precedent, but for all of these people, for him, for Brennan, for Clapper, who basically said Obama, he inferred it at least the other day that he ordered all this stuff. Like, the only way this gets fixed is when these big level figures make these mistakes and abuse their power and the system, is that they go down. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening. It's going to get worse, and it's going to systematically destroy our country.
Do you guys actually learn how to pass a lie detector test like they do in the movies? Like, I watched in this movie one time, the guy put a little needle underneath his toe, and he would put his toe down on it so it hurt, and that messed up the lie detector. Does that work?
I've heard the TAC theory. So there is different suggestions maybe out there. I would suggest that most of them really aren't that good of a deal. Really what you have is a lot of people in that position who just get off on power and don't actually get a lot out of you. I've been told before that in one, for example, that I was involved in terrorist activity, and I had to remind the guy that I was literally the antithesis of a terrorist. Like, I went out and hunted terrorists for my entire adult life. They just try and get you trapped on things like that. I think they bring value, but it comes down to your conscience. How strong is your conscience?
Oh, well, look, I would pass that thing with flying colors, and I have no conscience or character whatsoever.
Hey, amazing.
Yeah, I'd sail right through it. All right, I did want to, before we let you go, I want to talk to you about impeachment really quickly. They passed the impeachment inquiry yesterday. I feel like impeachment is actually the head of the Democrat Party. Nancy Pelosi held this off as long as possible, that circumstances are now dictating to her instead of her doing the dictating, and that I feel like this ends with them filing articles of impeachment, because I think they've made 3 years of promises, and they can't stop this train now. Am I crazy?
No, they have to. Like, this has to be the route they go, or people start to fall within their own party. They look even worse than they somehow do now going into 2020. What's going to be interesting, though, of course, is just what happens in the Senate. You see all these polls. I was reading something before we went on today that now they think this percentage or this number in the Senate are going to go against President Trump from the Republican side. So we'll see there. But I still think it's just such a Hail Mary on their part. I don't think there's a whole lot of substance behind it whatsoever. And I think it's going to be the ultimate backfire if they get it through, at least in the House, and then he still is able to run because it doesn't go through the Senate. He wins, and they just continue to look worse.
How worried should I be about the Senate, Drew? Because look, it's easy to say right now, oh, it's going to die in the Senate. It's going to die in the Senate. I mean, we still have some Mitt Romneys in the Senate, man. I mean, look, I certainly wouldn't want to bank on Mitt Romney's vote. I realize it needs 2/3 of the vote to pass the Senate, and that's a big hill to climb. But some of these Republican senators are not exactly known for their spine.
No, exactly. No, it's a scarier situation than it sounds, for sure. Because there are. I mean, look, I don't know all the senators. I'm not like the ideal political analyst or anything, but there's Collins. There's a lot of them who are on defense who need to win and need to be well received by their people back home, their constituents, and also within D.C. So there's going to be some flip-flopping going on. It's just, of course, going to be how much happens and is it enough. Hopefully it's not. But for me, look, I talked about this with someone the other day. If you're a Republican, you're Mitt Romney, and you go against President Trump here and you say, look, I don't like him, that's fine. You don't like him for whatever reason, that is your call. But look at what you're doing. Like, if you, one, don't have all the facts, okay, because no one does. I mean, even the Democrats don't have all the facts. They just are just making this up and going with whatever they can. But you don't have all the facts, and then you're willing to go against someone who, by the way, was voted in as president of the United States of America. And if you don't, what you're left with is not many enticing candidates on the Republican side, and all these people that are absolutely crazy with Elizabeth Warren type plans, Bernie Sanders type plans. I was saying the only time I like Bernie Sanders and his policy is last night when my kids get candy and I say, that's yours, the rest of it's mine. But like, these plans are crazy. Like, they're literally insane. So even if you don't like the guy, you vote against him, you're in many regards voting for some of these other people who are going to have a pretty good chance if they're not facing Donald J. Trump.
This is true, but you look, when I don't have the facts, I just pretend like I have all the facts and act super confident about it anyway. I find it works out really well for me. Drew Berquist, former intelligence officer, you have a good weekend, my friend. I am sure we will be talking to you again next week.
You got it. You too, Jesse.
Coming up next, Twitter is banning political advertising. But not really. I'll explain. Hang on. Twitter, or the head of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, has made the decision to stop political advertising. You see, you can pay for political ads, or you could pay for political ads on Twitter. Jack came out and said, we've made the decision to stop all political advertising on Twitter globally. We believe political message reach should be earned, not bought. Why? A few reasons, and I'm not going to bore you with all of his reasons. I will say this, though, should be earned, not bought. But the money they used to pay for it was earned. It doesn't matter. AOC, the brainchild of the Democrat Party, supports the ban, of course, came out and said this is a good call. Technology and social media especially has a powerful responsibility in preserving the integrity of our elections. Not allowing for paid disinformation is one of the most basic ethical decisions a company can make. As you may imagine, Trump's campaign manager, Brad Parscale, said Twitter bans political ads in yet another attempt by the left to silence Trump and conservatives. Wouldn't be surprised if Twitter lifted the ban after 2020. Here's the problem. The ban itself is political for two reasons. One, you ever have your team, your NFL team, play against the New England Patriots? The NFL banning, or the Twitter banning political ads is the equivalent the NFL banning the Patriots from throwing the football. Wait, what? Donald Trump is in the lead in money by a long shot. Donald Trump's campaign is destroying every Democrat campaign money-wise. The RNC, the National Republican Party, they're destroying the National Democrat Party fundraising-wise. In fact, the Democrat Party is in debt. The Republican Party is flush with cash. So to step in now and say, you know what? None of you guys get to buy ads. That's not equal across the board. That's not hurting both of them equally. That's hurting the one who actually had money to spend. That's reason number one. Reason number two is this. When's the last time you had to hang out with a liberal? And I don't mean in like a political setting on a panel or a debate stage. I'm talking the neighborhood crazy liberal ladies showed up. Do they ever take a play off on politics? They don't, right? You're sitting over there eating your queso, watching the football game. Can you believe that stupid Donald Trump? And just like, whoa, lady, it's game day. I'm going to need you to dial that down a notch, right? Just please. You know why they don't take a play off? The left doesn't view their thoughts as political. I walk into a party in my neighborhood, even though I'm passionate about it, I'm not going to bring up abortion. You know why? Because it's political. I'm not going to talk about taxes. I'm not going to talk about the border unless somebody brings these things up to me. Why? Because they're political. But the left does not, and they've never viewed their political ideology as being political. They view it as simply the truth, as simply the right thing. What do you mean? I'm not being political. I'm just saying what everybody knows, that Donald Trump's the devil. That is how they think. Do you remember Barack Obama? After every single mass shooting that took place in his presidency, no, I'm not blaming him for those. Mass shootings are the fault of the mass shooter. Obama would go to the microphone and do what? Every time. Well, I mean, we've got to change our gun laws. That's being political. He would gun grab every time there was a mass shooting. But Barack Obama never saw that as being political. He never thought that was political. He didn't understand why people were mad at him about it. I'm not being political. What are you talking about? That's just the truth. You watch what happens. Twitter's not banning political ads. Yes, they'll ban the ads from the candidates. And as soon as those are banned, you know what ads you're going to find on there? Well, there aren't political ads anymore, but let me tell you about global warming and why it's destroying the earth. Wait, what? I thought you were banning political speech. And they'll say, well, that's not political speech. That's common sense. We're saving the planet. That is how these people think. And that is what's coming soon. And Twitter is just a social media site. Now, it's powerful. I'm not discounting it. There are 2.5 billion users between Facebook and Twitter. It is powerful. But the problem is Twitter taking this step is just step one. This will snowball. This site will take this step, and this site will take this step. And soon, you'll be able to tune into political ads on Twitter, only they'll all be about the new transsexual figure skater who happens to dominate women's figure skating, and global warming, and why everybody should have an abortion just to enjoy the experience. Well, we're not being political. What are you talking about? These are just facts. That's how the left looks at it, and it's coming soon. To help break this down for me, well, with me, I mean, it's not like I need help breaking it down. To help break this down with me, the great Stephanie Hamill from Daily Caller is coming up in just a second. Hang on. Well, to break down this whole Twitter fiasco, oh, and by the way, one more tweet from Jack Dorsey. A final note, this isn't about free expression. This is about paying for reach. And paying to increase the reach of political speech has significant ramifications that today's democratic infrastructure may not be prepared to handle. It's worth stepping back in order to address, end quote. To talk about that, video columnist for the Daily Caller and my friend Stephanie Hamill is coming on. Stephanie, I got through that entire little tweet right there with all those like 4-syllable words without messing anything up. So it's a happy Friday already for me.
Yeah, good job. I'm so proud of you. Happy Friday.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, my biggest problem with this is twofold. One, if you ban all political ads, well, the Trump campaign and the RNC is flush with cash. They're the ones that actually had money to buy them. The Democrats didn't, so you're only hurting one side. And two, the left doesn't think their side is political. They never think their views are political. It's just the truth for them.
Yeah, I was really examining this issue because, there are a lot of people that say that the First Amendment doesn't necessarily apply on social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter. But the argument can be made that it is a public square, and that was the mission for Twitter and Facebook when they originally launched. That's how they got people to sign up, and they thought people who signed up thought that they did have the right to free speech on these platforms. So this move is interesting. It's specifically targeting paid political ads. And as you pointed out, the Democrats aren't winning the game anymore on social media, if you will. They weren't expecting President Trump to win in 2016. A lot of people are giving social media credit for President Trump's win, which was part of it was because candidate Trump at the time could reach out directly to the people because he could not get his message out directly through the mainstream media. Everything he said had to go through some sort of filter. They decide whether they air his campaign rallies. They decide the narrative, and they don't let him speak freely. So the reason I'm curious about this is because Democrats are either kind of silent about this political ad ban, or they're praising it. So why would they do that? It's obviously because they think it's going to benefit them. But why would they be applauding something that takes away one more tool that they can't use in a campaign? This is really going to hurt the lesser known candidates if you think about it. People that these targeted ads that you pay for help you reach potential constituents and voters so that they can hear your message and they would maybe likely vote for you. And as you pointed out, we're talking about cash. President Trump's campaign has spent more on Twitter campaign ads than all of the Democrat candidates combined in this election. So think about that number. He spent almost $7 million on Twitter ads, which $7 million isn't really that much. But if you add up all of the other candidates, they don't even get to like 5 million. So that's significant. Also, looking at Facebook, which is why some of the Democrats are so up in arms, President Trump's campaign has spent $20 million in paid political ads in this election. The Democrats, some of the top candidates right now, like Buttigieg and Warren and Sanders, all of them each haven't even reached $15 million together. So I think that's why Democrats are upset. I don't want to filibuster, so I'll let you jump in and, keep asking questions.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. No, that was great, and I didn't know that. I didn't realize he'd spent that much more. I mean, it makes sense because he has that much more money. And look, this is your wheelhouse. You're the expert on this kind of stuff. I just pretend to be the expert on it. Is this the wave of the future as far as digital advertising? I'm not under the impression that TV commercials are ever going to go away. There's always going to be a candidate running a, Morning in America, I'm an angel, my opponent's the devil thing on TV. But are candidates shifting their money to spend online more than ever before? I know they have tracking ads and all this other fancy stuff that I don't know because I went to community college. But is that moving when it comes to campaigns?
Well, I went to community college for 2 years too, but then I ended up transferring to the University of Arizona. I will say that social media is the future, and I think it is wise for campaigns to invest money in it. I'll take you back to 2012 when Obama's campaign spent $50 million on social media ads. He was praised for this. His campaign, they were lauded as geniuses. Okay? So they loved campaign ad spending then, but now, like I said, President Trump is winning the game. His campaign is winning the game on social media. Now they want to change the rules right in the middle of an election. So that's why I think it's curious. So did you ever hear Democrats crying when Obama was spent $50 million in 2012? So yes, social media is the future. And when you can target specific people that you want to hear your message, that is a good use of money. I'm looking at my Twitter feed and I was getting Biden campaign ads, which I thought was kind of hilarious because obviously I'm not voting for Biden. And then I did a turnaround rec on his campaign. It was saying something about investigating Trump over the Ukrainian phone call. I was like, not going to vote for you, Biden, but how about let's investigate Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine and in China? How about that? Right?
Yes. Who can pass up a good opportunity to troll Joe Biden with his bleeding eyes? Now, where do we stand as far as people in the conservative movement when it comes to social media? Because, I mean, it was a year ago, we were all 100% convinced that Facebook and Twitter and all of them, they're all a bunch of leftist activists and they're out to screw us. This Twitter move shows that, I mean, maybe that's still the case with Twitter, but recently everybody's attacking Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook for doing what exactly? Is he all of a sudden someone on the right? Or what are they mad at him about?
Well, Facebook, for the most part, everyone who works there is pretty much liberal. We all know that. And Zuckerberg has acknowledged that Silicon Valley as a whole is pretty much liberal, and they kind of do the groupthink over there. So what Zuckerberg is being criticized for is the fact that he wants to give candidates the ability to speak freely without having somebody come in and decide what's a lie and what's not a lie when it comes to these paid political campaign ads. And so I think that's a smart move. Not that I'm for candidates lying, but I feel uncomfortable with people fact-checking these candidates because who's going to fact-check these fact-checkers? And also, Facebook's model wasn't created for, looking into political campaign ads. So they just don't have the infrastructure for it, especially to implement it right now. So what Elizabeth Warren was furious about was one of Donald Trump's campaign ads, which he says had a lie in it. Whatever, every single campaign ad either has some sort of exaggeration of the truth, a lie. I mean, this happens on TV. Even if you watch like a debate, do you know how many lies and exaggerations were said on the debate stage, and no one was filtering them? No one was really fact checking them until after. So this is what candidates do. So Elizabeth Warren, she can lie about her Native American history. Are they going to fact check her on that? So the Democrats, for some reason, think that they're going to be able to maybe work out a deal with Facebook where they don't get fact checked, because typically the fact checkers tend to be left-leaning or left-leaning organizations. As you know, Snopes gets it wrong all the time. I'm sure you've looked into this, which is a fact-checking site. So I think that's their plan, and that's why they're upset. Look, we've heard other candidates like Kamala Harris from California, who said she would like to see President Trump banned off of Twitter. Democrats don't want conservatives on Twitter because that's really the last resort that they have when it comes to reaching out to voters directly. They can't do it through the magazines. They can't do it through the major networks for the most part. We saw CNN didn't even want to air one of the Trump campaign ads that was paid for. Now they're starting to not air President Trump's campaign rallies. So if President Trump in 2020 doesn't have the ability to use social media, there will be somewhat of a blackout if you think about it.
All right, Stephanie, finally, last question. You are my friend. I only want the best for you at all times. So when I heard that you were going to a parade this weekend with Nationals fans, why would you want to associate with people like that?
Well, I have other friends that peer pressured me into going, and I hate to admit this on the record, I'm not a big sports person. So I didn't watch the game. I don't really care. I don't have time for it. And I'm just going there to hang out with some friends. Is that sad?
No, you know what? That's not bad at all. You know, nobody likes a woman who only pretends to be into sports. Either be into it or not be into it, but nobody
I'm too
really
honest.
cares.
I know I'm going to get wrecked for this. I'm new to DC. This just isn't my thing.
Stephanie Hamill, video columnist for the Daily Caller. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jesse. Have a great weekend.
You too. Coming right up, finally, to wrap up our Friday, a story that actually genuinely will warm your heart. Hang on. Well, look, I know we joke around a lot on the show. It's a sarcastic show. It's a light show. It's an arrogant show because I'm here. But truth is, there's nothing better you can do in this world than make a kid, especially a sick child, make their life a little bit better, even if it's for just a moment. I would encourage any of you, take your time, look up your local children's hospital, wherever it may be, and maybe go down there, bring them some candy, bring them a toy, say hi. Can it be hard? Yes, absolutely. It can be very hard. You want to get choked up in a hurry, go to one of these things. But you will walk out of there knowing you did some good. That's one. Two, cops get a lot of guff in this country. And nobody likes to see a cop abuse somebody or something like that. But cops also put up with a lot of crap, and they give back a lot more than they hurt this country. Cops have a heart of gold. Most of the ones that I know sure do. So when I saw this from the Toledo Police Department, their SWAT team, one of their guys decided to dress up like Batman at a children's hospital, and look what he did.
Oh, it's Batman! Bryson, look, it's Batman! Bryson, can you wave? Oh, it's Batman! Get him!
That, ladies and gentlemen, is as good as it gets. Did you hear those kids? So no, you don't have to rappel from the rooftop. I would highly recommend you do not do that, by the way. But if you're looking to do a little good for somebody, maybe look up a children's hospital. You hear those squeals of joy? Yeah, you'll know you did the right thing when you walk in the door. That is all for this week on I'm Right. I know it was an amazing week, mainly because I was here. Also, I guess the production team was good too and whatnot. I will see you all next week. Be safe this weekend. Have fun. Later.